Well, hello and welcome to the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. We're so thrilled to have you here. I'm Wendy Rose Williams, and I am a past life energy healer, and I help people release pain, anxiety, depression, whatever is holding you back from enjoying your life and feeling happy and healthy, and that you can embrace your purpose. And my co host, Gregg Kirk, and I created this podcast to help people just normalize and feel better with your spiritual awakening, because it can be discombobulating. It can just bring you to your knees, knock you for a loop, and make you feel like you are a nut and make you feel very alone. And yes, that can be part of the process that's needed, but we just want to offer some support and guidance, having both been through very profound awakenings of our own. And you can find our podcast on our website at wakingupspiritually.com, which has a search button, and just go in for whatever topics in the area of spirituality, energy, in metaphysics, in that lane, and hopefully there will be a podcast or two or more in there to help you. So I'll turn it over to Gregg to introduce himself, and we'll get right into today's topic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gregg Kirk. I'm a Lyme disease advocate, also a practitioner in natural remedies for Lyme disease. I'm also Reiki practitioner, and I do remote and in-person sessions. I also run healing events, an online group healing circle every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I also do periodic in-person sessions, sessions and group meetings, group healings in the Connecticut area where I live. So you can check all that out by going to my website, greggkirk.com. That's spelled GREGGKIRK.com. Click the events link or click the appointment request button to get in touch with me. So, Wendy, I just want to say one thing. We did a broadcast a little over a month ago, and we had some technical difficulties. I just wanted to acknowledge that we knew that because it was kind of rough, and so we were trying to show some paranormal footage, some things in particular that I had filmed up in the sky, near where I live, and it didn't work out too well because Zoom had updated their sharing controls, and that was news to me as we were in the middle of broadcasting. So anyway, I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you for your patience. I expect that at some point when we do another paranormal broadcast that we'll revisit some of that. But thanks for bearing with us while during this time. But anyway, today Wendy and I are dedicating this episode to our two books. We talked about doing this a while ago, and really we're approaching it as kind of like a making of video where various Hollywood movies or even sometimes books or I've seen it in music, the making of like a classic album or something, and they interview the people at the studio who put it together and the musicians and everything. So we're doing a making of broadcast for our books, for my two books and Wendy's books, and we're just so you can get a flavor of where we're coming from, why we feel we needed to write these topics, and some interesting things that we're not pushing this on anyone, but perhaps you would like to read the books. So that's the idea. Anything you'd like to add to that, Wendy?
Yes, I think what's so important here is to understand the healing and the energy that is just a part of becoming an author, because the statistic is something like 80 to 90% of Americans, as an example, want to publish a book, and less than 10% get it done. So we just want to, help with that process, and just kind of, help with some of the inspirations, the impediments that came up, and let you know that you can do it. And I think for some people, publishing it is important. For other people, just getting it written is the important part because there's such energetic releases and you will understand yourself more. Um, for me, the surprise was as I wrote the first couple of books, when I sat back and had a little bit of perspective and looked at, okay, what is the overall theme? If I had to say in a sentence, what is the theme of this book? If I had to say it in a word, it's forgiveness. And I was not expecting to find that across three such very different books, nonfiction, fiction, and there it was. I think that's what's important with the making of and the backstory. So we're going to share some of that in a way that will hopefully uplift and inspire you to do the same. Or my favorite feedback and what makes me so happy, and Greg, I'd love to hear what it is for you, is when a reader tells me, "Oh my gosh, this helped me because." And
Mhm.
just to know that the blood, sweat, and tears and the energy and effort and the money that goes into getting the book written and published has helped someone else. It's really touching for us as authors.
I totally agree. And you know, I come from a very similar place with the reason for writing the books. You know, like you said, I've talked to so many people who are like, "Oh, I should write a book." You know, they'll tell me a really wild story about something they've gone through. I could write a book about it. You know, that's such a common thing that people say. And then I have, you know, I've also had people say that about me. They hear a story about me. They're like, you should write a book about that, or you could write a book. Well, so I decided to. And I wanted to come from the standpoint of I didn't want it to be an exercise in egotism or self-indulgence. I wanted it to be an exercise in helping people. I know you have that's your one of your main points too, Wendy. So when it's one of those things where I don't expect it's going to help everyone, but uh, you know, the old adage, well, even if it helps one person, then it was worth it. But yeah, so when you get that feedback that it does connect with someone, it does make you feel good that you've helped, and it kind of closes the circle on why you did it in the first place. So I yes, absolutely.
And
Um,
it can be part of our life purpose when you look at what your life path is and what you feel drawn to. It's important to put your time and effort into getting that done because otherwise, it's like that box just doesn't get checked, and it just comes back again and again. And I had a lot of trouble. Getting the first one done. It was like the bathtub drain was just clogged. And it was like no matter what I tried to do, I couldn't seem to get it unclogged. So I will walk you through what got that first one to finally flow. And it was really surprising because our guides come in again and again. Our higher self, our soul comes in again and again and again and want us to help us and want us to get it done. But when I was hearing from energy healer after energy healer and from psychic after psychic and just, connected friends, oh my goodness, you're supposed to be writing books, plural,
hmm.
and this has been an issue for you and you haven't gotten it done in the past or haven't gotten it done at the level
Oh,
that it
wow.
was meant to flow to help others. And I'm a life path 33, and that in a sentence is about letting go of what other people think.
Hmm.
So to write such personal books and to write them as nonfiction, that was a big part of me fulfilling that life path. So you can do it too, and just let go of the fear of other people's judgments because it's your story, and you've got to own your story. Because I'll have some people, interestingly, in book reviews, try and correct me and try and tell me, well, that couldn't have happened. This is what she really meant, and we can't correct other people's life stories.
No,
It,
no.
it, it just it just means that something wasn't clear, and it just means that a questions are needed, like, tell me more because I don't understand it. I'm not getting it, or
Yeah.
that makes me think this. Let's talk it through. I mean, communication. Oh my goodness. What a challenging art that can be on this planet, because we all remember being souls. We all remember being at home with the light, and we don't communicate in the same way because it's telepathy, and we just understand what the other person means, and more than what they mean, how they feel. And we just, because we truly are all one. So it's just a very different process. So the flaws in communication on this planet, I think we have to have a lot of sense of humor about, and just, understand, and just give a lot of grace to other people as well as to ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, let me get our PowerPoint deck up.
So Gregg is going to bring up a PowerPoint for those of you who are listening and not watching at this moment. So we do a PowerPoint to aid in communication.
Yes, yes. So here is our broadcast, and like Wendy, I had a psychic. Actually, it was beyond a psychic. It was a guy. Again, it was written in my first book. So my first book, The Gratitude Curve, came out in 2018. That's when it was published. The writing of it started all the way back in 2007. But even prior to that, and this was one, mentioned in one of the chapters in that book, The Gratitude Curve, that um, I had I stumbled upon a healer who I'd heard on the radio. It was such a wild experience where I'm listening to these shock jocks, local shock jocks, and this psychic comes on, and I thought, oh my God, what a strange combination. These guys who don't seem to care about anything. They just care about making fun of people, bring a psychic on of all things. And, so the audience kind of reacted appropriately and was trying to mock this guy. And, the amazing thing was he would say to them, like, if somebody started making fun of him, he would say, oh, how long ago did your mother pass? And your mother has this message for you. Just putting them right, just derailing their mockery. And then pushing energy through the phone to them. And I'd never heard anything like this in my life, and I responded like, I gotta have a session with this guy. I was in the depths of Lyme disease. I had been depressed for a couple of years. I was in treatment. I was doing antibiotics. I was felt like I was dying, and I almost did. Anyway, contacted the guy, and we did a session over the phone. And during the session, he said, "Oh, there was this." He had, I could hear him talking to other beings, and during one of the points, he said something like, "Oh, he's more special than you know." And I said, "Who are you talking to?" He said, "They're talking to me. That's what they said about you." And then he rattled off this stuff about, you're going to be doing what I'm doing, in other words, remote healing, and you're going to write a book, and blah 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 blah. And so anyway, all of this just kind of passed through me because I was so intent on the fact that my vision was changing while this was going on. My depression was going away. I was having physical responses to this guy and what he was doing. And so I just kind of like kept in the back of my mind, oh, he says I'm supposed to write a book. That's cool. Well, you know, so I started writing. I started writing some things down in 2007 because I didn't think I was going to live. So I was writing some things down about what I was going through, just so somebody who's a Lyme patient can understand what I was going through. But anyway, fast forward, I finished the book. I lived, as you can see, and I had a spiritual awakening, multiple spiritual awakenings in the middle of all that. Anyway, the events that immediately followed after the publishing of that first book is my second book, Your Love Will Make the Difference. And it's, I had no designs to write a sequel. It was enough to write that book. It took me almost 10 years. So after I started writing some notes down in 2007, it was 10 years later that I actually compiled everything. And so I wasn't diligently working on it for 10 years. It was just kind of germinating. And and moving. But the last year, I wrote it, and I got some test readers. Wendy, you were one of them. Thank you. And
Of course, my privilege.
yeah, and anyway, so the book came out, and so this is the second book. Your Love Will Make the Difference is a continuation of the story, because so many things happened immediately after publishing that book. So I just kind of break it down here on this PowerPoint slide. 4 chapters are dedicated to Lyme disease, how I got to remission. And so, I mention it in the first book is about the struggles, the ugliness that I experienced, and then punching through to the other side, and forgiveness is figured into that, and and just the breaking open process that occurred. My belief system being turned upside down, so many things going on during that metamorphosis, really. And then, so one thing that I realized is, once I reached remission, I found out it wasn't a destination. In order to retain the remission, I needed to continue this lifestyle. So, as I say to patients all the time now, if Lyme disease or some other chronic illness is a life-changing illness for you, then maybe your life needs to change. That's the way I look at it. The disease is information. So there's clearly some things in your life that need to be adjusted or be eradicated or drastically changed so you can maintain wellness. So clearly, we've accumulated all these experiences up to this point to where illness occurs. You've got to look at those things. So whether you're a spiritual person or not, it's a good thing to do. So that's what I talk about, how, because I fell out of remission, after some of the more miraculous experiences I had, because I thought I'm done. I achieved remission. So, not so much. I did achieve remission, but then
I'm well now. Let's go hit McDonald's.
pretty much, yeah, that's the way it was. Because I've heard Lyme patients, because I do, Lyme disease consulting now. So patients will say, so when can I go back to drinking beer and eating pizza? I'm like, maybe never. You maybe should look at, maybe that's why you're sick, if you're eating that all the time. Diet's a big deal. Anyway, so there's 4 chapters about that. It's literally and to me, it wasn't just about reaching remission. It was about changing my life into having a better life. So I didn't stop there. I didn't stop at remission. I pushed all the way through to, how can I have a better physical life, a better spiritual life, a better energetic life? That's because why not? All things are possible here. So I give some practical knowledge about it, some practical tips, in detail towards the end of the book, these 4 chapters. I also have 2 chapters I call messages from the guides. And this is derived from some of the sessions I've had with patients, to mainly what I call the spiritual laboratory, which is the Zoom circles I run every Sunday. So during those sessions, we have mainly practitioner level people, but other people as well. It started off as just being straight healing during COVID. We used to have a lot more people who were coming for healing, and that's all it was about for the first couple of years. Then it became something different, because we kept asking questions to the guides. And this was when I was developing my ability to channel, and I didn't. And I'd seen channels before, Paul Selig, Bashar, John of God, all these people who I watched do very noticeable channeling, and that didn't appeal to me. I didn't. So the channeling that I do, I think, Wendy, it's a bit similar to what you do, but I don't allow an entity to come into my body or my consciousness. I ask for the information to be transferred.
Because there are various types of channeling. Yes.
Yes. So yes. So there's a
channel, a conscious channel, and unconscious. I mean, there's just different types of channeling.
Yep. Yeah. So whatever the one is where you retain your sovereignty and the information gets, sent to you through telepathy. I mean, some people hear voices. I don't hear that. I think, Wendy, you're more clairaudient like
I'm very
that.
clairaudient.
Yeah.
Yes, you're more clairvoyant.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but also
Sentient.
sentient, or not sentient,
Mhm,
but it's a consciousness thing. So
mhm.
it's very similar to what I hear when people have interactions with extraterrestrials, where information is just tra- exchanged through telepathy. So that's what it feels like to me. I'll start talking during these sessions, and then um, I realize I'm still me. I'm witnessing it, and I'm saying the words, but the information that's coming into my head just it speeds up my
It's
rhythm
things
of.
you didn't know.
Yes, that's the clincher when I start saying things that I couldn't know or I didn't know. Like one of the things was the Latin words excelsior ad infinitum. Excelsior ad infinitum. I had to go look that up afterwards, after those words came out of my mouth. And every now and then it's something like that that's very noticeable, but other times it's just a deep wisdom that I don't sit around thinking about all day. Sometimes, well, more often now I do, but the information. So anyway, so I'll get into more of this later. But anyway, all the other chapters in the book, aside from those 6 chapters, are what I call spiritual adventures. So this is the fun part of the book. This is the kind of stuff I like to read, almost like Da Vinci Codes type stuff, where a guy is or a woman is the main character in this book, and then they're given a task and they go on a quest, and so there's a bit of that occurred in the book. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So let me just move on here. So just to hit this point again about mission to remission, that's the name of the chapter, mission to remission and beyond. It's I was answering the questions: what doctor got you better? What treatment helped you? Can Lyme disease be cured? These are very common questions, especially for people who reach out to me for consultations. And I answer the questions. I'm going to answer them real briefly right now. What doctor got me better? No doctor. And that may be shocking to people who um, don't have Lyme disease. People who have Lyme disease will say, you're shaking your head right now if you have Lyme disease. You've been in the medical system for, maybe a decade or more. And you're like, why does my doctor know nothing about Lyme disease? Why do they not believe that there's such a thing as chronic Lyme disease? What's going on here? How come insurance doesn't cover anything? I think it's important for you as a Lyme patient, if this is your first year of what you're going through, to understand that it's probably a healthy thing for you to start having your belief system churned or overturned right now, that the doctors who helped you for your acute illnesses like the flu, or something that can be easily treated with something like antibiotics, a short term of antibiotics, that they're not going to be the ones to help you with Lyme disease, almost certainly. um, anyway, so there's that. So no doctor got me better. I and this wasn't for lack of trying. I consulted with doctors for 6 straight years, and every one of those doctors harmed me in some way. And I'm not being facetious about it. In fact, I almost died from a PICC line procedure that jabbed my heart. So and it was other things as well. So 6 years straight antibiotics. That's when I say that to most people, they'll gasp. What? You were on antibiotics for 6 years? That's really bad for you. I know, and yet multiple doctors were telling me to stay on the antibiotics until I got better. So I didn't get better, and I got worse, and I almost died, and I had to become my own health advocate, and then I transitioned from that to becoming my own practitioner. So anyway, so back to real quick, what treatment helped you? It was multiples. It was more of a journey situation, where I tried everything. I had to eliminate trial and error. I had to try everything to find out what didn't work. And it was years of finding out what didn't work, even wondering if there was anything that would work, until I arrived at some herbal treatments that helped me. So that, and the confusing thing is that the treatment that helped me, it helps a lot of people. It doesn't help everyone because of, everyone's different. Everyone has a different
Unique
genetics.
physiology and
Yeah.
belief systems and emotions.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And your environmental situation. So people who have mold, they live in a moldy environment, are not going to respond well to some of these treatments until they get the mold situation taken care of. Or people with profound parasite infections or infestations. And you may think, oh, well, I've never been to a third world country, so I certainly don't have parasites. So many people in the United States have parasites, and it doesn't come from, going overseas. It can come from drinking well water. It can come from your pet. It can come from eating sushi or anything raw, not just meat, but even vegetables that have eggs on them that you don't see. It's so common that it needs to be looked into. And unfortunately, the testing for parasites is just as bad, if not worse, than the testing for Lyme disease. So, anyway, I give some tips about what to do about that. And then, the age old question in the Lyme community: can Lyme disease be cured? Well, um, that's a loaded question because the word cured insinuates that, oh, you take some treatment and you never have to deal with it again. There's so many illnesses in our lives that we get exposed to that still linger in the body. So that's what's going on with Lyme disease. So you go into remission from Lyme disease, and there's still a little bit of the infection in your body, but it's not anything that will bother you. I mean, they say that you walk around with 2 pounds of bacteria in your body on a daily basis that your immune system is fighting off. So that's a revolting thing to think about, I know, but it's a fact. So when you go into remission, you're knocking the pathogen levels of the Lyme disease down to a manageable, insignificant number. And it's kind of like when you get the chicken pox when you're a kid, and um, and then you go through a stressful situation, and then you get shingles later. That shingles is more or less the chicken pox virus that's remanifesting. And that's kind of like what happens with Lyme disease. So you can go into remission from Lyme disease, but you can have some sort of trauma in your life, like a car wreck or fall down and get a concussion, or have an emotional things happen where a severe death in the family, a loss of a job that really devastates you. Anything that can knock your immune system down can cause a recurrence of Lyme disease. And that's so knowing that if you've achieved remission and you've taken treatment that worked, it's nothing to get worried about. You get back on the treatment that got you better, and you'll be fine. So that's the good news in all this. So that's what I learned, and that's what kept me in remission. And then beyond that, I learned that mood is a big deal in not just in achieving remission. This whole there's so many patients who have a fight or flight mentality, or they don't believe the treatment will work. Your belief system can block the effectiveness of your treatment. As we well know, the placebo effect, and then there's the counterpart, the nocebo effect. So just as you can believe a treatment will work, even though it shouldn't scientifically, you can, manifest efficacy just through your belief. It's a known fact. There's the opposite of that. It's called the nocebo effect, and that's when you don't believe something will work.
Nothing can help me. No one can help me. This is just hopeless.
I don't deserve it, all that stuff. Yeah, that can block your treatment. I've seen it happen. I've seen it in person. So as what I tell patients is there's kind of three components. One, find an herbal treatment that you respond well to. Number two, keep a great mindset. Just don't put any expectations on the treatment, but just keep an attitude of, I know this is doing good for me. And in fact, I even go into this idea of what I was calling an intentional healing. So where you actually take the treatment, you hold it in your hands, and you say, this is helping me, or you bless it, whatever you want to do.
See yourself as well.
Yep.
And be open-minded as to what well means.
Yeah. Without keeping score, without being disappointed. Because if you're keeping score, there's kind of this panic mode of like, is it working yet? Is it working yet? Is it working yet? And that can block it. So just keeping your expectations out, but an open mind to that this is doing good. And then this is a part of healing, investigating your spirituality. That's the third aspect of this, and no, hardly anybody talks about. If you want to get over a life-changing illness, so many times there's a spiritual awakening involved in it. So I'm not just saying this out of woo-woo. I'm saying this is what happened to me, and I certainly wasn't looking for that. I was just looking to get better. I just want to take some pills, get over it. No, life had other plans, as they say. So anyway, so yeah, this is going into some of the stuff that has come through this is addressing the chapters of messages from the guides. So some of these we've turned into topics for our discussions in our broadcast, Wendy. So you may remember we did a broadcast on what's your role in a chaotic world. We did another episode of how do you start the revolution of love? Sound familiar? And so please go to our website, wakingupspiritually.com, click the broadcast link or click the search link and search for those episodes. I think those were one of our best episodes. And right now, what's going on in the world, so I published the book in September. There's a lot of stuff going on, political stuff, a lot of division about beliefs and who's a good politician and who's not. And you name it, wars going on. So we asked the guides years ago in one of our Zoom circles, what is our role in a chaotic world? What should we do? When we see a war starting out, should we take to the streets? When something happens politically that we don't like, what should we do? Should we try to run for office? Should we vote? Should we try to vote out the people we don't like and vote in the people we do like? What should we do? And, the guides just had a quick response. The first they said, how does any of this make you feel? Would it make you feel good to go out in the street and yell and be angry, basically they're saying your attention to this stuff is making you upset. So that, we just want to point that out, is not a good thing. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your mental state. So tend to your own garden, tend to your own energy. What can you do? And it's always, this is with everything. Turn this inward. Look at yourself. If you're angry about something, that's not good energy for you. And so some of our some of the people in the group, well, I feel like if I take, because the guys were saying, at any point in time, if you're watching, information coming in about a war or political disturbance or something like that, for every situation like that, there's always balance in the world. There's always something, the opposite of it happening in the world, something beautiful happening. There's the opposite of a war happening right now. There's the opposite of this political upheaval happening in the world right now. There's a place in Fairfield, Iowa, where people get together every day and meditate on love, a few thousand people. That's going on right now, while, there's war going on in Ukraine or other places in the world. So the guide said, so it's up to you. Which one do you like to focus on? Which one makes you feel better? And so people in the group were feeling guilty there, and they would say, well, if I feel like if I take my focus off of, a war happening somewhere and I focus it on Tahiti, which is a beautiful place and there's no war and it's natural, beautiful environment, that I'm ignoring what's happening in the world and I'm uninformed, and I'm being irresponsible. And that's when the guide said, well, look, what are you really going to do? What's your action that you think is going to, because you want to change these things, right? Well, what actions are really going to do that for you? And we kind of sorted through a lot of those, and that's when it came back to tend to your own garden. The best action you could take is get your energy right, get your love emotions coming up from you. And they said this is the one of those Buddhist things, the opposite of what you would think. It's the tiniest acts of kindness, the simple acts of smiling at somebody, in the street, helping somebody across the street, whatever. These are things that have such an impact beyond our understanding, and they have a chain reaction effect.
The
And,
ripple effect, yes.
yeah, and they said this is how you start the revolution of love. You build up the love in yourself, and then and they said these words: never miss an opportunity to teach, give, or receive love. Every experience you have with other people, never miss it. And they're like, don't beat yourself up if you miss one, because this happened to me recently where there was something happened and I thought, oh, I should go back and help that person, and I was kind of beating myself up. Why didn't I do that? And the guys are like, stop. You'll have another opportunity. It's coming. so so just that opportunity happened to wake you up, to get you out of your workaday robot mode of I'm just going through the motions of the habits that I do every day. That thing occurred to wake you up so that now you're back on the track of paying attention to your surroundings, not looking at your phone like you see everybody doing every minute of the day, and understanding where your opportunity is to give, receive, and teach love. So huge stuff, I think. And what great information. It takes pressure off, I think, in some ways. Of we don't have to go out. I don't know. I've never seen too many problems solved by taken to the streets. And I'm sure people would argue with me about that, but I like this better. Okay, that's my choice. I like the simple acts of kindness. That really feels like something I have control over. My own emotions, my own way of being kind with people. And this goes down to the final chapter in the book. My own version of love is, the title of the book is "Your Love Will Make the Difference," and that's the punchline of the book. Because we came around during one of our sessions, and I said, so I understand about what you said about tend to our own garden and all revolution of love and stuff like that. Is there anything else that you can give us? And they said, your love will make the difference. And what they meant by that is each of us is like a puzzle piece in this reality right now. And Wendy, your love, my love, it has a different vibration to it. And when we plug that love into the collective, it it makes a difference, like
It
in a way
lifts,
that we
it
want.
lifts, it lifts the energy up. It lifts the vibration up for everyone.
Yes. Yeah. So real quick, and this is an entire chapter. We got this information that there are 4 lessons of experience: patience, forgiveness, detachment, and grace. And I won't spend much time on them. Just check out the book. It's this is one of those things where this information came in and I thought, that's really simple. Certainly there are more than 4 things in life that we come here to work out and do, but I haven't been able to debunk any of it, because you could really line up any any experience that you have in life to something involving patience, forgiveness, detachment, and grace. And grace is the component that they say that it's in the equation: love plus wisdom equals grace. So if there's a lesson of love in there, it's a lesson of grace. So anyway, there's that. And the final thing, the spiritual adventures. So just real quick, yeah. So I was doing a session with a woman back in 20, whenever Notre Dame Cathedral burned. It was I can't remember what year that was. 2017 maybe. I remember it was tax day. It was April 15th. Notre Dame Cathedral caught on fire, and 4 days later I was doing a remote session with a woman for the first time, who was a Lyme patient. And instead of me visualizing and seeing her energy body, I saw Notre Dame Cathedral burning. And I started apologizing to her because I thought, oh no, there's I'd had a past life around Notre Dame, so maybe I was having an emotional response to it burning. But no, what came through was this. You'll have to read the book. I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but we had an interaction with, I believe it was the Divine Mother. It was this female energy that came in, made us both weep. It was overpowering. And the information was that, that where Notre Dame Cathedral is built used to be a temple of Isis. And they built this patriarchal church, and they more or less kind of defiled or flipped the polarity of that location. And the location is very important. It's was more almost a portal type of location to a center of ley lines, and it clearly is a center of locations and directions in Europe, because on right next to where Notre Dame is built, there's something called point zero, point zero. Sorry for my French accent. And this is where all the locations of Europe are measured, right in front of Notre Dame Cathedral. Anyway, the point being, this church was put up. People were burned in front of the church. A lot of women who were labeled as witches. So there's this female energy going on, that was flipped upside down. And then the final thing was the last Grand Master of the Templars, Jacques de Molay. I found out this woman was Jacques de Molay. So anyway, all this stuff came through. It was insane to me. I was just trying to do a regular session with this woman, and then the information came in that I needed to go physically to Notre Dame to do an energy clearing. It had to be before the end of the year. So the clock started ticking. It was April, needed to be before the end of the year. And just to give you an idea of my personal circumstances at the time, we had a flood in our house, and they found asbestos in the flood damage. And so we got kicked out of our house for 3 months, and we were put up in a hotel. And during this time is when this information came in. So it just seemed impossible that I was going to be traveling to Paris while my personal circumstances were in such upheaval. But that is exactly what happened. And after doing the earth clearing in Paris, I was directed to go to Council Rock, which is that giant piece of quartzite that you see at the top of the slide. That's in Montauk, Long Island. That's so that's like the size of a small automobile, nothing but quartz. And that is an area where 15 Native American tribes did battle, and there's a lot of stuck energy there. A lot of people were buried on the site of this battle, and so I was directed to go there. And then the image down to in the lower right, where you see a cross on this volcanic outcropping, that's in Andros Island. That's in the Bahamas, and that where I'm standing there is the only part of that island that's in the Bermuda Triangle. And it's an incredible place called Morgan's Bluff. And there was another. Obviously, there's all kinds of energetic anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle, and so I was directed there to go do the clearing. And as I was standing in front of this cross here, I looked down at my feet, and there was footprints in the what had once been molten rock. And so pictures of all this stuff are in the book. So I just wanted to. So if you like this kind of stuff, I do. It's fun, and there's even some pictures. So check it out. And that's really all I wanted to go through today, Wendy. So if you're interested in my books, both of them are up on Amazon. They're both up also on barnesandnoble.com, or you can go to my website. And if you buy them from my website, greggkirk.com, I'll sign it for you. So you can, and also I don't have, I get all the money versus, Amazon takes a little chunk, and so does Barnes and Noble. So that's it.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for that recap, Gregg. That's really, really powerful. So, how did I get started in this lifetime as an author? As I said, it was really hard to do. There was so much stuck energy from multiple lifetimes in this area. So what happened was I just started writing, but I didn't have a vision. I wanted to write nonfiction. I wanted to write fiction. I started multiple books and I was all over the place. So of course nothing was getting done, or so I thought. But what really was happening was these various energetic clearings were taking place. And I wrote over a couple of years time period. It was a time period when my daughters were teens. They both were just very amazing students, just very self-motivated. So they would do, their homework on their own quietly in the evening for hours. So I was finally able to get my head above water of this very, very busy single working mom, and get my head above water, and was just, writing while they were doing homework. Gregg, I wrote about 1,000 pages. I was astonished. And
Wow.
as I said, it wasn't one book, it was just all over the place.
Hmm.
So I was very frustrated because I couldn't seem to finish anything. I couldn't seem to get the vision of it. So I sat down and meditated and said, what do we do here? Because I just need to pick a lane. I need to pick a project. And once I really made this heartfelt request for assistance, it was like boom, boom, boom. And Regression Healing 1, the huntsman, the Lord High Mayor, and the World War II soldier got done in a very unusual, brilliant way, engineered by my guides. So what this session is, it is a client session. And when I went into that client session, it was at the point when I was originally a traveling hypnotherapist, and I would go to people's homes. And the guides told me before I went in to do that a few days before, this is going to be the most difficult session of your life, and you need to double record it because there's so much energy between the two of you. Because at that point, there wasn't Zoom, so I was using a little MP3 recorder, and I had a brand new to me fancy dancy iPhone that I barely knew how to use, and I noticed it had a recording button on it. So I went in there and placed the MP3, we tested it, placed it next to the client, and placed my phone on the other side of them and hit record. So we did this incredible session that lasted 4.5 hours. The end of the session, when I asked him, how long do you think we were in session? And he said, oh, wow, it was much longer than I was expecting, because I know I'm not a, I'm not a great person with trance. I can move into it, but then I keep bopping out. And I'm like, oh, you certainly did. Because I was exhausted by the end of that. I was like on the floor from having to, get him back to that level where helpful information was coming through from his higher self and guides. And add to this the personal layer, because of course when my guides told me this is going to be the most difficult session of your life, I did ask the question, am I meant to do it? Is the time now? And I did share the information with the client. He was my former boyfriend, and he had woken me up spiritually, so it just had this extra load and layers to it because of that. And when I told him that, he said, I'm so glad you told me that, but I feel even more so that we're meant to do it. So let's just do it and see what happens. So that was just a great attitude. That's a perfect example of release your expectations. And as humans, we're not always very good at that. We can try and control things. Control is an illusion. It does not serve us. So, but going in with that attitude. So the title comes from the 3 lifetimes that he explored in some depth as a soldier, and etc. And we were working on two main issues. He had significant physical pain. He'd been a professional athlete in 2 different sports. He had broken his neck and had that surgically repaired. So he was living with a really debilitating level of pain every day. And that was why we did this session, to see if we could get to the lifetime of origin to release that. And he also could not connect with his guides. He tried and tried and tried, but he just could not figure out how to do so. So those were the kind of the two main things we were working on. So after going through these 3 lives, I had to ask the obvious, the best obvious question you've got to ask. And I just asked his higher self and guides and said, did we get there? Did we get to what's causing this pain? And is he now connected? And they said, no, we didn't get to the lifetime of origin causing all this pain. And I'm like, what? So I said, take us there. And also, he had been interweaving, speaking as his higher self beautifully, really powerfully, speaking as his soul level self for 2.5 hours. Because remember, he thought the session was 2 hours. So that's the session he's like, consciously aware of. But there was another 2.5 hours where he was just really vibrating at such a high level. He had no conscious memory of it. So yay, the recordings, right? And all this information had been coming through, and he'd been interweaving. He and I had shared 21 lives together. So he was just in shorthand mode too, because it was just the two of us. And I had no intention or knowledge that this was going to be the first book was going to be shared. So he's just shorthanding his way through those lives and would pull references out, and it would make perfect sense to me. But then, of course, when it became a book, I had to, write it out a bit more so people would understand it. And we got to 2 lifetimes where he was egregiously tortured and harmed. And as he was going through and explaining what it was like to be drawn and quartered, and he was pretty dispassionate about it. And that's important to understand, because past life regression, you're at a higher level and you're being supported by the divine as well as by your hypnotherapist. So even though you may be saying things that, us in normal conversation would sound just horrifying, and we would perhaps just shut down on and not want to discuss, it's different when you're at a soul level and you're not re-traumatized by it. It's the opposite. You're releasing it, you're letting it go, you're understanding why. So what turned out when I asked him as he went through, and I moved him through as quickly as possible to get him to pass on from that life where he was tortured to death. And I said, and asked him who was involved. And the first person he named was his mother in this lifetime. And I was like, ooh, that's just really loaded. And he has this beautiful relationship with his mother in this lifetime, but it's quite complex. So, and then he said what I didn't want him to say, yet I knew what he was going to say before he said it. I said, who is the other person involved? And he said, you were the inquisitor. You were the person asking me the questions. Now, as he's being tortured to death. Now, what a beautiful circle for that to now come around. And I'm now asking him the gentle questions to lead to his healing and releasing this pain. How perfect is that?
Wow.
And he said to me at the time, and I'm just bawling silently and just like, Wendy, you got to hold it together. You got to hold it together. The session's for him. You'll deal with your own stuff later. To forgive myself from that, because to know that I had so egregiously harmed someone that I had loved so many times, it was really hard to hear. So I had to go through that process, and that's what was needed, because self-forgiveness is often the final, most difficult layer of forgiveness. It's easier to forgive those we love or feel more neutral about, but to forgive ourselves, it's the big final graduation. So that's what was needed. And he said, I forgive you. I forgive you. This was so long ago. We've done so many things to each other, and I forgive you. So, and then there was another lifetime where he was harmed. I was not involved in that one, and it was easier to get through that one. So we also found the missing link and got him connected with his guide. So I was like, yay. And his guides just said, you just forgot to do that part. You were kind of in a rush incarnating and coming back on in very gung-ho, and you did not set up that connection. So we're going to rectify that now. So at the end of this session, like I said, I'm just flatter than a pancake. I'm exhausted because it's been so unusually emotional because I was so involved with it. And it was a long, long session. So I grabbed the MP3 and go to transfer it onto his computer for him. Gregg, my heart stopped because there was nothing there.
Ugh.
And I'm like, ugh, because there's no way, even though I was furiously taking notes, there's just no way. He needed to hear his own voice. He needed to feel his own energy changes to really absorb and get all this healing and information. So I picked up my iPhone and I was like, oh, please let it be here. Let it be on this new phone. And it was there. And I'm like fast forwarding through it. I'm like, oh, it's there. It's all there, but I couldn't get the recording off my phone onto his computer. So it's like, that's okay. I'll go to the store and some brilliant tech person there will help me and they'll, figure out a way. Well, they're flummoxed at the store. And I said, please don't play this out loud in the mall. So I'm a therapist. This needs to be confidential, but we need to get this. And they just looked at me and they're calling supervisor over me. They're like, this phone, this is not capable of a 4.5 hour recording. How did you do this? And I'm like, I hit play. That's about all I know about the audio function on this. And they're like, oh, wow, you really are not technical. But I could not get it off there. And I couldn't give up my phone to him. So, and we didn't want to sit and listen to it together. We just didn't want to do it again. So I sat with it for a few days and I'm like, what do I do? And finally, my guide said, you just need to do a quick and dirty transcript. Just type it for him. And I'm like, oh, that's just going to take forever. And they're like, type it for him. So I offered to do that. And he said, I'll be so grateful. So it's like, okay. So I sat down on the first Saturday that the kids were with their dad and I start typing it, Gregg, but I didn't realize it was channeled. It was coming through as a book. It was at so many levels, the energy healing, the releasing me, stepping to the plate as an author finally. And this was the vehicle that was chosen to get that done. So when I took my first stretch break after, a couple hours of just transcribing this fast and furious as I could, I looked at it in surprise because it had the title, it said by Wendy Rose Williams, it had chapter names, it had a note to include a forgiveness resource guide at the end of it. And I looked at it in surprise. I'm like, oh, this is not an email or Word document just for him. This is a book. This is my first book. There it is. So I contacted him and asked his permission and said, would you be willing for me to share this publicly? Of course, I want you to read it first, blind your identity, remove anything that's identifying information that you're not comfortable with. And he said, yes, 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 please do it. Because I know I have a soul contract. We've talked about it multiple times. We were meant to write books together, and I'd helped him get his first solo book published. And now he was helping me with mine. We had just overinterpreted. We thought it meant write a book, back and forth. I write a chapter, you write a chapter. But that wasn't quite the way it came to fruition. Once we had stopped dating because we couldn't do it. So it just my point is these wonderful contracts, when something important is meant to happen, it will happen in a different way. Just let it flow. Don't try and over control it, and just keep asking for help, and just keep telling your guides and higher self, I'm open to it. Show me the way. Show me another way. Show me a different way. Make it happen. So I have the book. I have no idea how to get a cover, how to get it formatted, how to get it self-published, etc., because I knew it was to be self-published because I was told that you're not going to attract an agent or a publisher, and we don't want anyone in the energy of this. It needs to be you encapsulate it the way the two of you agree, and no one is meant to change that. So then the miracles just start happening because I just asked my guides for help. And all of a sudden, I find out that a gal I know who wants to do a session with me and doesn't have the money. Guess what one of her skill sets is? She is a book cover designer, and she knows how to format, and she knows how to get things uploaded on what was then CreateSpace, which became Kindle Direct Publishing via Amazon. So, and also I didn't have an editor. So I made the really brave move. I asked my mother if she'd be willing to edit for me. And I said, Mom, this book may make no sense to you and it may irritate the heck out of you, but would you be willing to go through it, just grammar, spelling, punctuation, type, type um, proofing it, etc. And she said, sure, I can do that for you. So, and then about 20, 25 people stepped to the plate as test readers. Because again, I had to make sure that, the shorthand of the various lives that he and I had talked about, so briefly, so quickly made sense to other people, that there was enough there. So that's how the book came to fruition. And again, I felt like the world's biggest clog had just been pulled out. And from there, I was able to write the Flow One Plymouth Plantation. And in a nutshell, I, like you, Gregg, I'd been writing it and writing it because it was a very different book. It came out as historic fiction, which I really didn't know very much about. And but that was the way the story was presenting. And Anne Warren Little was just telling me her life story at Plymouth Plantation in the 1600s. And it's actually my past life. So it's my own energy and information coming through. And I had been writing it and then I'd put it on the back burner and didn't know what to do with it and would just kind of let it, it had to percolate. And it did that for about 5 years. And then I got triggered. There's always this point that gets us to like, oh, now I know how to finish it. And I want to complete it. I got triggered by all things by a television commercial for National Geographic's Saints and Strangers, which is about it's their telling of Plymouth Plantation and how people, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, that's good, that's right. And I'm looking at the commercial, I'm like, nope, that's wrong, 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 wrong. And it was just, I was so triggered by this simple little, 30-second, 60-second commercial. And I couldn't wait to see the mini series that was going to come up because it had so much energy release for me. And I finished the book of my experience at Plymouth Plantation. It was a huge energetic release, and I highly recommend the book for anyone that has had issues with ghosting, with ghosts around you, with being scared of ghosts, not knowing what to do with ghosts, or the opposite, being fascinated by ghosts, wondering if you've ever been a ghost, wondering what that whole process is about, because I was still here in this present lifetime as Anne Warren Little's ghost. That was causing major issues for me, and I needed to tell her story to help get her to agree to go to the light. So that's why that book had to be done. Regression Healing 1 is about, in so many ways, it's about letting go of physical pain. That was just, and the forgiveness that's necessary. They're both soulmate stories in the sense of very significant, powerful energy between two people that have incarnated together many times, but they're not the trope of happily ever after. So do not read them if you're looking for that, because it's told very differently, but the what had happened with Anne was she had not forgiven the man that she thought she was to marry, who ghosted her, who just disappeared, and she didn't understand where he'd gone to in her late teens after having had this clandestine relationship for 6, 7, 8 years when she's a teenager and is at Plymouth Plantation, and he's the sea captain who brought her over from England, and she recognized him and said, "Oh my gosh, there he is. There's my soulmate." But this is not a lifetime where it's safe to be talking about or sharing those Puritans, pilgrims. No. So that's what that book is about in a nutshell, in that she just has to forgive him, forgive herself, because she's been scorned and left behind. It doesn't know what happened. And again, it's me and that same former boyfriend who woke me up. So regression healing too, we go into a different lane here with Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe. What inspired the writing of regression healing 2 was Joe DiMaggio. His spirit on the other side called me out via my spiritual teacher, and she had texted me, "Joe wants to talk with you." And it felt like I was being called to the principal's office in a way, because there'd been all this energy around Joe and Marilyn trying to present. And I was like, nope, don't want to deal with it. Don't want to deal with these famous people. Nope, nope, nope. I can just see, the criticism that's going to come up, and who does she think she is? And these are very well-known individuals who have estates, etc. And I just didn't want to deal with it, Gregg. But I needed to for my own health. I needed to for my own personal freedom. I needed to for so many reasons. So the book took 8 years to write, and it is my own sessions going to past life regressionist after past life regressionist, trying to disprove that I was one of these two individuals in a past life, and instead just end up fully accepting that, yes, I do indeed have a past life as Joe DiMaggio, and the physical healing that came through, as well as the emotional healing, because I had the good fortune to have a young woman in Europe referred to me for a session for anxiety and depression and other issues that she was having. Again, she was in her late teens at the time, and she had profound, significant memories as Marilyn Monroe. So when I do the sessions for her, I have got my therapist hat on, like anything. It's like, I'm not going to budge from that. I'm not going to talk about Joe DiMaggio because it's her session. I didn't know what was going to come up, and it was very important that she have her own session. But she kept going there and saying, "Joe, you remember this?" Joe. And she kept calling out and saying, "You were Joe, I know." And we healed that experience together. And she said to me as Joe, "I forgive you," because he did something very unforgivable to her during their marriage, and he struck her. And that was what needed to be forgiven. And just the clearing of that. So that's got some similarities to regression healing 1, because again, I had harmed someone so egregiously. So that is those 3 books in a nutshell. What inspired them, what was being healed, what the lessons were. And I think they're very universal. I think there's just so much universal healing energy in them. So check them out. And like Gregg's books, they're available via Amazon as well as via Audible. They're all recorded as audiobooks. They're also available via Barnes and Noble and anywhere you like to purchase your books. So that is what these stories are about. and they have changed my life to have been able to have shared these for. So thank you for listening to what these have meant to me.
Well, you said the commonality in these books is forgiveness, which I agree, but also self-healing. I mean, going
Absolutely.
through the act of, all of these sessions that you did, compiling the information, and then doing the writing, there was a fair amount of energetic healing happening
Absolutely.
for you during that process. As I think, looking back, also me too, in the books I wrote. So yeah.
Mm. So write your books, write them for yourself, and don't get hung up on how and when and if you're going to publish. It's so important, and you will set yourself free. And I think it is just so important to be able to do that. And then here's just a quick slide with some of the reviews, and we can just skip right on through that, Greg, in the interest of time.
Okay.
So please, thank you so much for being here today. Please join us December 8th for the next episode of Waking Up Spiritually. And we're going to have our annual wonderful December guest. Debbie Buss was our very first guest, and she's an amazing astrologer, numerologist, wonderful, wonderful person with just some great insights in what's going on in the world. And she'll be doing a forecast of what's going to come up from an astrology and numerology perspective in the next year in 2026, and what some of those implications might be. So check out our website at wakingupspiritually.com, and there's that search button, and you can just check through and look at the various broadcasts that we've done over our 5+ years. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, rate and review us on Apple iTunes or wherever you like to listen to your podcast. That is so appreciated, as it helps more like-minded people find us, so that we can just have these conversations together. Visit Gregg at his website, Gregg Kirk, KIRK.com. Consider having a session with him. I've had many. They're always amazing, wonderful, not what I expect, yet just what I need. And check out his books. And please visit me at my website to see what I have available for energy healing sessions at wendyrosewilliams.com.
Very good. Thank you, Wendy. And we'll see you all.
See you next month with Debbie Buss.
Yep. Sorry, some things just happened in Zoom that threw me for a loop. They just did another update since our last broadcast. Thankfully, I
There we
think
go.
we're good in this episode. But we'll see you all in December. Wendy, always a pleasure, and